Welcome to the Esmeric Art Studio. Today we are going to be playing with some metal tape and we are going to make these decorations for the trees. What else are we going to need? Let's have a look. First of all, we are going to need our polystyrene balls, and there is different sizes available. There's also a smaller one available. With this one it's a little bit tricky, but you can still use them. I'm going to put gesso on mine. Is that necessary? Maybe not, but I prefer putting gesso on that. We're going to need our metal tape. Then we will need some string to add here so that we can hang it. We're going to need some paint brushes, and we are going to need some things to just add for designs. So these are old ones that I just picked them up from the dollar store, and I have actually used these ones on this one here. I find it's a little bit thick, but it gives a very nice effect. I've also used quite a few of die cuts or cutouts that I have. These I've cut on my silhouette. I think what I'll do is I'll just draw some of these out and then you can cut them for yourself. What I did find is use a thinner cardstock than what you are using to thick cardstock, because it's really difficult when you try and adhere it when it's too thick, especially when you're working with the smaller ones. It's easier to use a thinner one and just layer them up. So to get these down, I've just used a plain glue stick for that. You can also use these. Let me just see. I've used some of them for those little ones over there, as well as for the little bobble there in the middle. And this, let me show you. These ones here, they're actually hollow. I have used this around here, and again there is some cutouts that I have used. We are also going to need just a couple of tools, basic tools. You don't even need some texture wheels. You can just make some scratch marks in there. We're going to need a water-based marker. In the end, some Sharpies for coloring, as well as some alcohol inks, paint brushes to go with that, and then scissors. Yeah, and most probably there will be one or two things along the line that I can think of. Okay, let's get started. The first step is going to put a layer of gesso onto the polystyrene ball. You know what, you don't really have to do a thick layer. Personally, I just find that it gives the metal tape something to get a grip on, because some of these polystyrene balls are really smooth. It looks like it's got some texture on, but it is smooth. So just painting a thin layer of that on. Put it aside for a couple of minutes to dry before we move on to the next step. First, we're going to measure the string that we are going to use, and I've played around with some lengths, and I find that a 15-inch works well for this size ball. So my first thought was I was going to use a needle and just pull it through and tie a knot at the bottom, but then I couldn't find a needle that is long enough to go through my ball, so I had to come up with another plan, and this is what I've done. I've just tied a knot in there on the top and give it a little enough space so that you can hang it. And next step was I have just run some glue more or less around the center of the ball, and then I have here my string. So I've just pushed it down, hold it, pull the one string down to the bottom, and just make sure that you stay on the glue and push the other one down there. And there you go. our little string is at here. I'm going to put holly on this one, and first I'm just going to give it a little bit of glue and just stick them together, the two on top of each other, so that they are all together. And then once I've done that, I will start spacing them onto the ball. When you do the spacing, you can really measure it out if you want to, or you can just eyeball it. I think I'm just going to eyeball it. So I think I'm going to do one round about here. And I think I'll do so that I have the one end of the leaf, of the holly leaf, almost on the... And as I mentioned before, this is why I work with a thinner cardstock, so that it can actually stay on the bends here. Yeah, and of course now he doesn't want to do that. Okay. But you'll get the idea. This is because once we start putting the metal tape on, it is going to... Okay, trust me, it's going to stay on like that when we start with the metal tape. To finish off the bottom, I'm just going to add a little bobble there. And I will use the smaller ones, because when you think of holly, it has the three little berries there. So I'm just going to add the three little dots there, and that one just fell down. Okay, where did you come from? I'll just get the spacing, more or less, yeah. Okay. These things always happen when I video. Everything that usually can go wrong when I'm busy taping these things. But I don't mind sharing with you, because then you know these are kind of things that is going to happen along the way. Okay, so on to the next step. Next step is the metal tape. So when I was making those others, I find that this is quite a nice length to work with for the metal tape. And I will add the measurement for this tape in the description. And I'm using the metal tape from the hardware store. What you're going to do is you're just going to pull it away and put it as close as what you can to your the string that you've had here, and you're just going to start pushing it down. And you can just use your thumbs and just keep on moving down. And there you can see that stray little pieces that was there. It is down now. And there's I was just looking for the center. Yeah, so I'm gonna go on, and I'm just gonna come up all the way back to the opposite side here. And when I get there, you can just, I think the best would be just to tear it and hold your string up and put the one to the one side and the other one to the opposite side of the string. So there you go. And there our first piece of metal tape is down. We're going to use our paper stump, and we're just going to start moving it down. You can actually use your finger as well. It really doesn't matter what you are using. I just find that I prefer working with the paper stump. I actually have a splinter in my finger and I can't get it out, so it's a little bit hurtful working with my finger, the tip of my finger. So when you come to an area like this where you know you have your design, you are just going to pay a little bit more attention there so that you can get the definition. And you're going to keep on pushing it down, try and go in there. And if you break through the tape when you are doing this, it's perfectly fine. You can just take another piece of tape and you know, just put it over it and continue on working. So there you go. If you want to have more definition there, you can use the back of a paintbrush to get in there between the circles. You can use you know, a smaller tool like one of these little plastic purple tools. I really love working with this little tool. So you can work in there and just get a good definition there. You can actually come in with this and outline as well if you want to. Next is I'm just going to come in with a couple of more strands like this, go all around, and once that is done, we will move. So as you can see now, we only have these small little areas that hasn't been covered. And again, you know, how you're going to come in and do that, you can actually go in and shape it in an oval and put that on, or you can just stick with the straight lines. I think for this, I'm just going to stick with the straight lines, going to measure it more or less. That one isn't too thick, so I might just cut off a strip here. And you also could have used the whole thick strip. It all depends, you know, how you would like your project to do, or to look, how you want your project to do, how you want your project to look. And just go over it again. So everything is covered now. And I'm just going to go over and make sure that we get a good adhesion. And from there, I'm just going to use my little purple stylus, and I'm going to accentuate around the little bubbles that we have. Oh, and that one just tore. Remember I said there's going to be a good chance that it's going to tear. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tear off another piece of metal tape, and I'm just going to lay it over there. And come in with my paper stump and work it flat, and just keep on refining with my little purple tool. It's a burnishing tool, a stylus, it's an eraser. I usually call this my little wonder tool. Wonder how I could have done metal embossing without it, because once you start working with it, it is so nice. Yeah, so just go all around and make sure that you accentuate all of these. So I'm going to go around and I'll see you once they are all done. Everything is done and secured. So now comes decision time. So you can either use a texture wheel or any other thing that can make texture to add some texture to your design, or you can just leave it as is and just accentuate these with color, and that will be after we have done the blackening. So for this one, I don't think I'm going to put any other texture on, the same as this one. I'm just going to leave it as is. So for blackening, we are using a water-based permanent marker, and all we're going to do is we're just going to start coloring it in. Now we're just going to start wiping it away. And again, you know, the amount of the blackening that, or the marker that you are going to wipe away, that's going to be personal. For some of us, we prefer to have it darker. Others would like to have it more shiny. Personal preference. That's what's making the world so interesting, that we can actually all do the same project and it will look different because we all put our own spin as well as our own likes and dislikes into a project. At one stage I was thinking I'm going to add a little bead through here and just glue it on there, but unfortunately I couldn't find beads that fit through. The hole were either too small or way too big, so I just decided, well, again, then it just stays as is. Next up is coloring. I'm first going to use the alcohol inks, and this is letters. I'm just going to drop some in a piece of plastic that I got from my garbage can here next to me, and I'm just going to dab it onto the area where the leaves is. And it doesn't really matter which green you are using. You can go in for a more Christmassy green if you would like to. That would be like almost a bottle green. I think that should be like a Christmas green. And I'm just going to add that, and I'm going to work my way around and just add it to all the leaves. A tip for when you are working with the alcohol inks and metal tape, and I think for that matter even for pewter too, it always gives a way better effect after you have added the patina or the blackening. It really makes a difference whether you do it before the time or afterwards. Make sure that you get in there between the little bubbles, because we're going to turn or color them red now. So I'm just going to close this up, and I'll clean my brush after. So when I clean my brush, I usually just use some alcohol spray, and I'll just spray it on a paper towel, and I just keep on going like this until no more color comes off. These are my usual ones that I use. Okay, next step, we're just going to use a red Sharpie. I think you could have used a green Sharpie for the leaves too. It doesn't matter. And I'm just going to go in and do the 3 little dots in red. And the Sharpies that I use is the brush ones. I just find it works so much better for me than the plain ones. I use the plain ones too, but just having this softer brush gives you a little bit more flexibility. So I've just switched off the light so that you can actually see it a little bit better when it's not as bright. So it really looks very nice with the hint of color. It's not too overpowering, and with the black in the background as well. And again, as I said, you can still add a little bead in there, just string it through here, and there's your bead. So the last thing I will do with these is, once they are all completed, I will just go over with lacquer spray so that I can seal them and have them ready for the tree. I actually did the bottom little bobble red as well. While I was doing that, I was just thinking, if you don't want to put the string on, what you can do as well is just get a bowl, put some greenery in there, and then you can just add all of these balls, you know, as a table setting or a decoration for your coffee table or the console table. So I hope you have enjoyed making these little metal tree or metal tape balls. And as always, thank you so much for spending time with me in the studio. And remember, the world of reality has its limits, but the world of imagination is boundless.